Well, we are here with Mr. Howard Brooks today. Mr. Howard is the founder of HealthKeeperz, and I wanted to spend just a little time hearing from Mr. Howard on a short history of HealthKeeperz, and we want to talk about our Barnabas culture. Some of you would remember that in 2016 at our first Barnabas Award banquet, we awarded Mr. Howard with the first Barnabas Award. Because we really see in Mr. Howard and have seen in him the spirit of Barnabas, and we wanted to honor him in that way. So Mr. Howard, I appreciate you just taking some time with me today as we get started in a short series of videos on the Barnabas culture and our Barnabas Awards for this year. Could you give us a short history of HealthKeeperz? I know we haven't always been called HealthKeeperz, but could you give us a short history of HealthKeeperz?
Well, thanks for creating this forum, because it gives me it's an outlet that I can manifest my thoughts and endeavors that's been going on now for the last 50 years, 55 years now.
Wow.
So I really appreciate it. To start with a history of HealthKeeperz, we have to start with the history of the Pembroke Drug Center, because that's where it all started. I'd like to mention I finished pharmacy school in '66 at the Medical University, nowadays Medical University of South Carolina, but then it was the Medical College of South Carolina, College of Pharmacy. And I finished my pharmacy school in 1966 and opened our retail pharmacy here in 1967. Our people, they're just a unique set of people. They're wonderful. They're delightful. They're truthful. They have good basic religious backgrounds, most of them, and you could see that that was what I got to enjoy to be a part of when I'm coming back here to be a pharmacist and work with them in filling their prescriptions. A few of the just thoughts I had that I'd like to mention. This may be a little different than you might think. Our Valentine's Day was one of the biggest days in our retail operation for a number of years. We had you remember how in the chicken coop, you'd have how the chicken would walk up on the stand to sit at night, and we made us one of those up against the front of the building there. We filled that up with Valentine candy. And it was just so pleasing to see these young men come in to buy their box of candy for their wife or their girlfriend, And we sold a lot of candy like that on Valentine's Day. And then other examples I think you might be interested in. Some of the peculiarities of some of the personalities. We can sit and even now today, you see some of the children or the grandchildren of the patients that we work with at the beginning of our pharmacy work. They come in now, and I'd see them, and they'd give me to remember their parents, and that was one of the pleasant things about working as long as I did in the pharmacy. I wouldn't be able to see their parents because most of them had passed on. But I could remember their character, their parents, through them as they would come in and talk. So I would have one would come in and say, he'd lean up with his elbows on the prescription counter right at the end there where he could get it was low enough that he could do that. He'd pull out his prescription and he'd ask me, he says, "What can you sell me this for?" That was
negotiation.
Just, yeah, so beautiful, and I'd never forget that. I see his grandchildren. In fact, one of his grandchildren works with us in one of our services. Then the other would be the diligence and the desire of our people to work with you, because to help you. We saw that over so many different times. They knew that I just open up a pharmacy, and especially in the Pembroke area, and really especially in the Prospect area. Those people, they would come and they would do business with me and continued it. And for long, many of years, many of them passing on, doing business with he and their family. And even now, someone will come up to me and tell me, we remember, again, as we mentioned here, what you did for our parents. And we want to continue. And someone says, that's one reason I'm still here, is because of what you did for my parents, how you give them credit when they didn't have it. And our child, our brother or sister at that time was able to have medication for treatment of their illness at that time. And I have a number of them come like that even now. And none of them tell me, it says, you did this and you didn't charge us, you know. And some of it, a number of them, I don't remember. But they come and tell me these things.
Mr. Howard, I guess in our community, because we're a big farming community, that was probably not uncommon, was it, for families to maybe not have all the financial resources they needed in the moment to buy their medication?
That was very much the rule at that time, because as we mentioned here, that most of a large percentage of the families of our community were still farmers, and we know that they got most of their income in the fall, and we would charge with them whenever they need charging, whether it would be in the fall or whether earlier, you know. And we did that for a lot of people. And the thing about it also, we would do that, and the majority of most of them would come back and pay me. That was just, well, it was just a good life. It was a hard life as far as working every day. And as far as the store hours we had at that time, or during that time to begin with, we worked 9 to 9 each day, and then worked from 1 to 6 on Lord's Day on Sunday. I wasn't saved at that time. So a lot of hours, and a lot of appreciative hours. And I know a lot of times on Sunday, you know, people after church would go to the doctor. My brother Martin would see them at his practice, and they'd all come down. We did have sort of a communication where he would tell me what's here, you know. Then I could be down there getting ready for him to come down, because nobody else was open on Sunday, you know. So we helped in that way. Of course, we was glad to help in that circumstance.